precious uncle, Professor Mahasara Gunaratne, he passed away in July of 2024. And he was an emeritus professor. He had served as a senior lecturer, then a professor, and then a senior professor at the University of Pennsylvania. He also traveled quite extensively. He spent time in London working with some of the most notable scholars and specialists in Paris and also in the United States, where he spent time at Johns Hopkins University Medical School. He also briefly worked at the medical school in Nairobi in Kenya. He devoted his entire life to produce a generation of practitioners and scholars, meaning doctors, clinicians, and also academics who teach the next generation. Personally, I'm very grateful to him because he shaped my mind, my own thinking in my early years. I would spend my summers in Pennsylvania. So I would see him waking up in the morning and dressing up and going to work. It was a routine for him. Worked every day, evenings, worked Saturdays, Sundays. But he was also a very good father and a very good uncle. So I should say that he delivered me. And there was a small story that he narrated to me. He said that when my mother was in labor, his boss had visited my mother, but the doctor was not wearing a tie yet, didn't have stethoscope. So my mother, when the doctor approached my mother asked, "Are you a doctor? You don't look like a doctor." And basically the doctor left. And then of course my uncle came and he delivered me. So he also believed that people must dress properly, appropriately for the job. He always said that you must dress not only for your current job, but you must dress for your next job. So I learned much from him. He also constantly referred to Father Lecoq and Father Peter Ville, who were the two teachers at St. Joseph's College. They influenced a generation of students to be very hardworking. Even my uncle was exactly like that, and I think I may have inherited some of those genes. My uncle was a far-reaching leader. That is, he produced a number of publications that help people to better understand the challenges that they face. The most famous book that he produced was called Childlessness, because during that time in Sri Lanka, whenever a lady couldn't conceive, the family members will say, "Oh, you are a very unfortunate woman, you can't produce a child." But my uncle's research clearly demonstrated that in many cases women couldn't conceive not because there was something wrong with her, there was something wrong with the husband. So women were eternally grateful to him for his research findings. So that book became quite well known. I still remember when he published this book, he asked me how to get an ISBN number, because I had already published, although I was much younger than him. I introduced him to the national body in Sri Lanka that issues an ISBN number. So he's a very passionate man. And he also wrote another book which is called The Five Dawns, where he paid a tribute to scholars who shaped his thinking. And this particular book, the foreword to this book, was written by Dr. P.R. Anthonys. P.R. Anthonys was Chancellor of Colombo University. He was the surgeon who operated on SWR Diyamanthi. He was shot by a misguided monk. My uncle wrote about these 5 dons. They were Professor of Physics, Maivagana, and Kanagasundara, who was senior lecturer in anatomy, and Professor Kure, who was Professor of Pathology, and Professor Rajasurya, who was Professor of Medicine, and Professor Milroy Paul, who was Professor of Surgery. All of them came from the University of Ceylon. These books are in many ways a tribute to the teachers. Then my uncle also wrote a number of novels, and one is Between Two Wars and Uncle Arthur Mystery. So he's extremely a well-read scholar. So I think that these books will be of tremendous value to people who want to understand about history. Another is Cliff House Mansion, which is another novel. Other is The Carpet Weavers, and another is Doomsday and Uncle Arthur Mystery. He had another book called The Lilac of Tebua, which is a tree that is in Peradeniya University. His generation of people were exceptionally well educated in Latin. They had traveled the world, very widely read. He was a man of a different generation, and he emphasized constantly on education, and that was his biggest gift, because he produced a generation of practitioners and of scholars or academics that will continue his legacy forward.